Gli antichi abitanti del pianeta sapevano che nella selce la natura aveva racchiuso la scintilla creatrice del fuoco e i confini politici e naturali non avevano di certo impedito alle tribù di sperimentarlo. Così come lungo il Tevere, ovunque, come nelle rive del Waikato, in Nuova Zelanda, che vide nascere Guy Needham. Così accadde che dove il pensiero incontra la memoria antica, l'esigenza di scoprire come eravamo divampi. Io con la mia scatola di cartone e il grande Needham con i suoi racconti fotografici. Magic moment tonight, questa sera, con il maestro Needham, Mr. Needham, per presentare le sue opere qui alla galleria Gard di Roma. Allora, io direi, facciamo in questa maniera. Quando ha deciso di dedicarsi completamente alla fotografia. Question number one.
It's been a while actually, but I started taking photos only about 15 years ago, and I'm self-taught, so I've read magazines or watched videos, but I was overseas in Morocco and someone saw my photos and published them in a newspaper back in New Zealand. So then I thought, oh, maybe I've got an eye, maybe I have a skill to do this. And photography is not actually my full-time job, so I do this in my holidays. Every holiday I travel somewhere around the world to meet indigenous tribes, to go and stay with them. My family think I'm a bit loco, a little bit crazy, but that's what I do. Are you saying, is it an occupation or like a hobby?
Yes, like a hobby. Yes.
Very much it's like a hobby. When I started, which was actually going to Asia, I just found that I had a certain connection with Indigenous people. I think it's because I come from a very small town. It also helps that I'm brown and not white. So I'm a little bit welcome in. I don't look like an American. And for me, I get to learn and I get to spend time, and very often they are interested in my home and my family and what we do in New Zealand when children come up and grow of age, and what do we wear, and who do we pray to, and what do we hunt, and where are our weapons.
Può raccontare quali precauzioni si impone di non superare mai quando documenta la vita di una comunità indigena?
One of the most important things is I never take photographs of people without having their permission. And when I go and spend time with these tribes, I don't actually start taking photos straight away. I usually wait a couple of days, because otherwise it would be like someone coming to my house and sitting beside me and taking photos from my couch, and it would just be strange. So I try to get their trust. I talk to them, I listen, I write notes, I laugh at their jokes, which are probably about me. I try to explain where I've come from, and then only when they want to be photographed do I take their photos. I don't try to get them to do anything in a certain type of way. I don't get them to dress up. Some of the tribes like to dress up for celebration or do a dance, but I deliberately find tribes that are a little bit more authentic, although that's harder and harder to do these days.
Qual è il motore che ha spinto a raccontare le tribù indigene piuttosto che altre tematiche?
I feel that I've been very fortunate in that the very first tribe that I spent time with in Papua New Guinea was so welcoming and so interested and interesting that I thought this is something I'd like to find out more about. Who knows what will happen to these indigenous tribes in the future? I've been to ones where there are government interventions to make them fully clothed. I've been to others where roads have been put through their road forests. And I feel like it's an opportunity to see them and to tell their stories in an interesting way, not in a condescending way, but a very respectful way, while I still have the opportunity. There are other people who take much better photographs than I ever could of travel, of Rome, of architecture, of other people. But for me, it's about the connection. When I look at the photos, I know these people, I spent time with these people, and I don't think I could get that from anything else. I think especially in a world of AI where things can be created, and amazingly so, there is something special about being able to spend time and learn about others and see what they value. And that makes me question my values as well. You know, do I really need the latest iPhone? Do I need that 60-inch TV? You know, so once I started working with the tribes, I just didn't stop.
Come considera il suo lavoro un reportage antropologico oppure arte fotografica?
Ironically, I don't see it as either. I wouldn't quite consider it fine art, but it is that intersection between documentary and portraiture. For me, it's a way in to tell their stories, and rather than have them sit around a camp or anything like that, this feels to me to honour them in a traditional way, like some of the masters, painters in the past would have honoured their subjects. So it's a way for me to help tell their stories, but also show them, and I show them the photos while I'm there, show them how impressive they are and how amazing they look. Of course, in my experiences with them and in my research, I know quite a lot from an anthropological point of view, but more often than not, it's just I'm trying to learn what their lifestyle is like. They try and find a guide who speaks, because it's not only the language, it's their dialect of the language. So I've got to find someone who speaks the Dani language. So I end up turning up, I don't know who I'm going to see. All I have is I'm going to be with this person for 7 days. I turn up, they drive and they do the translation. They're usually a member of the tribe, but more westernized. And they're the ones who talk me through it. So yeah, it's completely talking through a translator the whole time. Some things are universal, laughter, rain, animals, chasing children around.
A few words also, no?
A little bit. A little bit. Like with them, one of the things that they do is if you give me your hands, they go, wah, 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 wah. And it means thank you, but it also means goodbye, but it means hello, but it means you're welcome. It means all these different things. And so I try to learn a little bit of their language, but it's quite hard.
So 1 week is not enough.
1 week is not enough. I spent time with a tribe called the Hazabe, and they are in Tanzania, and they live under rock faces, and they don't even have a written language. Their language is only passed down orally, and they speak in clicks. So they speak in clicks, and they draw on the rocks, but there's no written language. So everything is passed down from generation to generation. And they tell the time by the number of seasons that have passed. So you have all this interesting intricacies, not only with language, but with context and time. So for them, what is the future? You know, we have enough food for today and tomorrow and the next day, then we go out hunting again. So that's a very long way of saying, yes, I take a translator.
crescere nella Nuova Zelanda degli anni 70 ha influenzato il suo modo di vedere il mondo?
I grew up in a town which has 300 people. It had no shops, it had one school, but it had 3 marae. And the Māori, who are the indigenous people of New Zealand, made up 85% of the population of the town that I grew up in. So by nature, I learned different words, and I learned different values, and I learned different norms from society that maybe otherwise I wouldn't have got. And growing up in a small town, you get to know people, you have to respect people, you get to see other people interacting. And I think for me, those are values that I took away, especially with respect of others. Because when I go to visit these tribes, I'm the foreigner. I'm the stranger who is going to visit them, and I can't treat them like the other. That I am the other. I'm the weird one that they look at and wonder what is this person? So growing up in a small town helped me shape that.
C'è una tradizione magari filosofica, religiosa, iconica della sua terra d'origine che cerca di riproporre nei suoi scatti?
I think with my photos, what I try to reflect is more a holistic approach of connection. And one of the things with the Māori people in New Zealand, when we welcome each other, we touch noses. And the reason we do that, it's called sharing of the breath. So what I try to bring to my photographs is a certain closeness. Even the ones where the portraits are a little bit back, they're still close. And I like to think that when someone is seeing the photo, they can imagine that person there. They can see that person, they can see their breath. And so I like to bring this closeness into my photographs. I'm not very good at taking photos of people far away. So I go right up to them, and I usually tell jokes and tell them that the other woman was more beautiful than them, and then by the time you get to that point, they all want to be involved. But for me, it's an intimacy, a closeness, a sharing of breath that I try to bring in.
Really interesting everything. C'è un incontro in particolare durante uno dei suoi tanti viaggi, ad esempio Samburu in Kenya o i Dani in Papua, che considera fondamentale per la sua evoluzione intellettuale.
One of the tribes that I spent time with were called the Hadzabe, and they're in Tanzania. They're very remote. They are so remote that when we got to where we're nearly going to get, the driver had to go on ahead and see if they were still there because they're nomadic as well. And he came back and we ended up staying in a tent not far from them. There wasn't enough room under what's known as a boma, which is a rock face. They didn't have a written language. Everything's passed down orally. That's how they teach their children. It hardly rains, that the children are covered in dust. But one day we went baboon hunting because that's what they do. So, you know, as a European, you go, oh my gosh, you're eating another primate. But what it did is it made me refocus onto what normality actually is. So anyway, we went baboon hunting, and I'm tramping along there, and I've got my heavy pack and my cameras. I was so loud and so bad that they sent me back early, and then they came back later with the baboon, and they had the baboon up. So they pinned it up, they skinned it, and then they cut it open, and they reached in and they grabbed the heart of the baboon and they pulled it out and they offered it to me to eat. And at that moment, what do? You can't disappoint your hosts. So I was about to go and eat it when they just cracked up laughing because it was just all a big joke. And what that made me learn is that humour is universal. There's different parts of humour, and no matter where you are, some people will just want to have fun with you.
Molti dei suoi ritratti dimostrano una eccellente tecnica nella gestione della luce, l'intensità degli sguardi, Crede che esistano negli esseri umani dei codici universali, per esempio la profondità di un volto, di un'espressione, che la fotografia è in grado di tradurre per qualsiasi latitudine?
Well, first of all of the photos that I take are in natural light. I don't have any lamps or anything like that, so it's in sunlight. Secondly, like these photos, I have a black backdrop that is held behind them, and it's held by two other warriors. So while he's having his photo taken, one of the children is holding it, or one of the men is holding the drip behind them. Now, what that allows me to do is to focus on the face and to focus on the expressions. When you are taking photos of people like this, you can't just sit there and go click, 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 and get hundreds of photos, because first of all, it's their time. Secondly, they might think that you're going to do something bad with them. So I wait for the right expression. I always lock it into the eyes. I try to get it when they're just first coming up, but something I've noticed with all the tribes is that there's a sense of pride I try to bring out in the photos that I take. There's a sense of culture, of belonging that I believe is visible in people's eyes and their facial expressions. Even the ones that just look straight at you, you can tell by the expressions, and I think there is some universality in that.
Cosa pensa dell'avvento della fotografia generata dalla artificial intelligence?
AI use in photography has been around for a long time, and for those who use, for instance, Lightroom and they remove a dust, that they're using AI. There are others that will create whole images from the start. And of course, photography around the world is wrestling with, is that image a real image versus that which is a created image, and they have percentages. For me, I think AI image making has a place. I think that personally, I would never replace a cloudy sky with a blue sky, because that didn't exist. That's just me. For others, it makes a more beautiful image, so I can see how they would do that. I look at my photographs from a time and place perspective, and that is, I need to make the effort to go there, and I think my photographs are unique because I was the only one who was there at the time taking that particular photograph. So absolutely, AI has its place. Do I use it to adjust some lighting? A little, but I think there's a difference between using AI in photography and cleaning up something that you've done and creating something from the start. You go through Instagram now, there's whole videos that are completely AI. There's whole advertisements that are all AI. So I think there's an art, there's a magic of photography, there's a magic of the moment that AI can never capture.
Of course.
Because I can tell you what he was doing after I took that photo. Yeah. With AI, it's just there. So it's not for me, but I can see how it's for others.
Claro. Guardando al futuro, c'è una storia, una comunità o una parte del mondo che non ha ancora fotografato e che sente il bisogno di fotografare, di documentare ancora i game.
Absolutely, lots of places that I want to go to. I'd like to go back to South America, to the jungles there, even though I hate the jungle because I always get bitten by leeches and it's scratched up and everything else. There are some tribes in Northwest Africa that I'd like to spend some time with, and maybe a little more time in Asia as well. But for me, it comes down to how unique are they? I don't want to go somewhere where you see the images everywhere or their story is relatively well told. If there are 3 tribes and 2 of them are well known, I'll probably go to the 3rd tribe. For me, I want them to be as traditional as possible. I don't want them dressing up for tourists, but South America, probably Guyana, somewhere like that, I'll go back. Maybe towards the Amazon again.
Amazon?
Which was pretty amazing. I spent time in Ecuador, and although it's getting more dangerous these days. So yes, lots of places that I still have to go to. I've got to plan out, but it takes 6 months. It takes 6 months for me to do the research, find someone in that country I can talk to, who can put me in touch with a tour operator, who can arrange a guide, who the guide can then go and ask the tribe if it's okay if I visit. And then the guide comes back and reports back to the tour operator, who then goes back and they then email me, because they're not on Dani@outlook.com or anything like that. There's no email. So that's how long it takes. And sometimes it just doesn't work out. I have reached out to tribes and it just hasn't worked out. That's okay.
Ha mai pensato di passare dalla fotografia fissa alla regia di un docufilm, o ritiene che il singolo scatto fotografico abbia una forza narrativa che il video non può replicare?
I think people who do video are amazing. I think they are incredible. It's not what I want to do though. To me, I look around this room and if I could have 15 videos going, it just wouldn't be the same. So to me, it's that personal connection of having the photograph, but I look at people who do videos and I am blown away. I still don't think that, I think they're so transient now. People are just scrolling. And yes, they do that with images as well, but I don't really care about the likes or anything like that. To me, it's about their story. Where have they come from? What do they do? What's important to them? What do they think?
Ci consenta un segreto. Quale attrezzatura predilige per realizzare i suoi reportage? Una Panasonic?
No. I have Canon, but not because it's better than Nikon or anything else. It's just that I started with that, and I don't even have mirrorless. I've got old school big lenses. But when I go to take these photographs, I take small lenses, so it's not scary. I take off the battery pack, so it makes it smaller, more compact, but still digital. But as I said, it's not as if I'm taking 6 photos of them and then shoot. I only get to take maybe 2-3 images of the person there. So not film, but digital, but very limited. But if I was to start again today, I get mirrorless, I get probably go Sony, I go lighter, there's lots. Yeah.
Analogica o digitale? Nel caso analogico, sviluppa da sé i suoi scatti?
Yeah, so I generally have 2 camera bodies that I take. They're both Canon camera bodies. For these portraits, I will use a 24 to 105 millimeter lens, so pretty standard. I like to keep a bit of a distance. I also have a 50 millimeter lens, which is a 1.2, but I never drop it down to that much because too much is out of focus. I take a tripod. I take a black backdrop so that they can stand in front of, but no lighting, nothing like that. And where I go, I need to take lots of batteries because there's no electricity, and lots of memory cards, and that's it.
Thank you very much. For me, it's a really pleasure. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
The next time. Bye-bye.
Ulaban tu manuoli, ulaban tu yogi